Hello and welcome to a review of Washington from the History Channel 2020 release and other factors that deal with George Washington and his birthday, because today is George Washington's birthday. So stick around for the review of of Washington 2020 History Channel, as well as we'll take a look at the crossing and turn Washington Spies. But first, let's talk about his birthday, George Washington's birthday. George Washington's birthday is celebrated as a federal holiday on the third Monday in February. It is one of 11 permanent holidays established by Congress, and that's called President's Day, with the apostrophe before the S. Federal holidays apply only to the federal government and the District of Columbia. Congress has never declared a national holiday binding in all states, and each state decides its own legal holidays, which really wasn't an issue until Martin Luther King Jr. came around, but that's a different story. George Washington was born. Get ready for this. If you didn't know this, this is where it gets interesting. Make sure you're wearing your seatbelt. Airbags will not help. George Washington was born in Virginia on February 11th, 1731, according to the then used Julian calendar. In 1752, however, Britain and all its colonies adopted the Gregorian calendar, which moved Washington's birthday a year and 11 days to February 22nd, 1732. If you don't know about the year 1752, when Britain switched to the Gregorian calendar, that is a wonderful, fun mess, because when they did it, it was around 800 or 900 years after all the other countries did it, which means you had 800 or 900 years worth of leap days to make up. So it wasn't just February 29th. Oh no, there were leap days all over the place that particular year. And it's fun. And then you can do the whole history of how April Fool's Day was born, how the Kick Me sign was born. All of that's involved with this. And it was the year George Washington was born. And it affected his birthday, being moved from February 11th to February 22nd. Okay, so that's the fun stuff about his birthday and when his birthday is. Is it February 11th? Is it February 22nd? It actually, and it, changed his age by an entire year. Okay, now let's get into the review of Woke Washington. Well, how woke was Washington 2020 on the History Channel? Spoiler, not that woke, but there was wokeness in it. Some of the things you can expect is very, very little interaction with the American Indians. They happen in the first episode, where the war with France is started on accident by Captain Washington. Oopsie! And so he was using American Indians to assist him with that. And that's about it for the American Indians. You will not see hide nor hair of them mentioned again. It shows how, as productions go, like in the 70s when they did this stuff with Washington, there was a lot of involvement with the American Indians, because American Indians were actually quite important to Americans in the 1970s. And now they've vanished from cinema almost entirely. When was the last time you've seen an American Indian cinema release? It's been a long time now. Smoke Signals was probably the most popular last one, and that was in the 90s? Yeah, it's been a while. Dances with Wolves, 90s. Yeah, this is 2020. It's been a long time since American Indians were remembered, and they're not remembered in this to any significant amount at all. No, we're in 2020, so what's remembered the most? Well, we don't call it Woke Washington for nothing. Oh, the slavery. We have to talk about the slaves. Okay, fine. But what about the American Indians? Hello? Whatever. Okay, so what do you expect for the slavery? They make an excessive deal about the assistant to George Washington, and then they don't ever talk about him again because we don't know anything. So they may think, oh, we got to know about him, but we really don't know anything, so we're just going to make him stand in all the shots. And they do. Over and over and over again, you keep seeing his slave standing there. It's like, okay, but we don't know anything, so this is looking pretty much as token could ever look. Woke Washington. And in the very end of the whole show, on episode 3, depending on how you watch it. The last 20 minutes, it goes into a whole bunch of stuff about the slavery. And it's really disgusting in the sense that it lists all these people that were founding fathers and how they were squishy on slavery. And by that I mean they were against slavery as a nation, but they weren't about to give it up. But the name they never mention in regard to his extreme anti-slavery position is John Adams. That's never mentioned in the whole series. And Adams never had slaves. Adams despised slavery. John Quincy, his son, who became president later on, despised slaves. None of that is given a wink, because that wouldn't be woke Washington. No, we only have to talk about the founding fathers and how they were squishy with slavery. Well, not all the founding fathers were squishy, or the North wouldn't have been free and the South would have been slave. There's a reason the North was free, because John Adams and Benjamin Franklin and a few others worked really hard to get the whole nation to be free of slaves in 1776, and they lost that debate, but they won the debate for freedom and to leave the British system. So they won half of the debate, and then it took about 7 years later, and next thing you know, we finally got it resolved. Oh, no, we didn't. This is 2020. Identity politics say slaves are still continuing. No, Kanye West says slaves aren't. Woke Washington. Okay, what else can you expect? It's a pretty good review. The thing that I had the most problem with in watching Washington is the fellow who plays Washington is unbelievably miscast. Honestly, he's just too skinny. This guy looks like Ichabod Crane and nothing like George Washington. You can see his image right here. This dude is a toothpick. Washington was chunky. He was no Henry Knox. And that's the other thing. Henry Knox in this film is portrayed as like a little bit chubby. No, Knox was huge. And so... And the guy, the casting is just awful. Washington doesn't look like Washington. Knox doesn't look like Knox. Hamilton looks nothing like Hamilton. None of these people look like the people they're portraying, which is really weird. History Channel usually cares about that. Okay, so there's the wokeness. Lots and lots of slavery. Virtually nothing of American Indians. Welcome to the changing decades. Welcome to the changing, what do we care about? What do we not care about? Nothing about Adams and his massive fight against slavery, which I wouldn't even bring up except for the fact that they bring up all the other founding fathers' points of view, and they just kind of conveniently leave Adams out of that discussion, and Benjamin Franklin for that matter. Okay, so is it worth a watch? Is it 8.6? Sure, it's 8.6. Now let's go to the next one. The Crossing. Oh, which reminds me, Jeff Daniels is the one that plays Washington in this, and Jeff Daniels was quite large when he played this, so it was kind of apropos. And the guy that played Henry Knox in this, gigantic, which is perfect, and they handle that really well. Now, Jeff Daniels stars as Washington in this. Jeff Daniels actually does the narration for this, but for some reason they make him sound like Walter Winchell through a 1930s radio, and I don't know why, because if you don't know that it's Jeff Daniels, you're probably not going to be able to recognize him. Because he sounds like this. Hello, and I'm narrating the Washington. It's like, dude, really? I don't understand that choice, but I also don't understand the casting, so there you go. Now, The Crossing. This is about the crossing of the Delaware on Christmas night, 1776. If you're not familiar with what really happened and why it's important, this film really will help you with that a lot, because it digs in deep to the relationship between the ferryman from New York who continues to save America's booty, but it gets into all the stuff of why crossing the Delaware is so important to American history, as in, if it didn't happen and it didn't happen successfully, and when you watch it, like, define successfully. Okay, the crossing the Delaware wasn't successful, but the battle was. There would be no America. It's that important. And this really covers it. And the portrayal of Washington, really good. It's Washington's birthday. You want to watch a great Washington production and you really get to know the man in a deeper, richer way, highly recommend this. And not just him, but the other characters. I've heard complaint from historians in regard to this film only in regards to the fact that they use first names, and according to the historians that I listen to, they're like, no, no. In those days, officers never, ever would neglect titles. Titles were a big deal until the 1960s. They were a huge deal. It was Walt Disney that actually got rid of that. I'm not Mr. Disney. That's my father. I'm Walt. And now everybody's like on a first name basis, which is beyond creepy. Another great example of Washington. And I will admit, I got a little spoiled from Washington's Spies in regard to what Washington should look like. Because the fellow that plays Washington in this it's like, yeah, he just worked for me. It really worked well. Whereas, Mr. Ichabod Crane, and I'm not picking on the dude. He's just really tall and really skinny, which Washington was very tall, but he was not really skinny. Now, Washington's Birthday. What should you watch? Washington Spies. Washington Spies. Oh, and that was another thing. They never, ever, ever talk about Washington Spies and how it helped him win the war, which, according to Britain, according to Britain, without Washington Spies, America would have never won the war. So to them, they thought it was pretty fundamental. Nowhere mentioned in this. Not even about American Indians got more than they did. Okay, and that's it. Okay, now, as far as watching this is a wonderful show. It's a great show. If you've read the book, Washington Spies, and you watch the show, you will know this show has like 3% to do with reality. It's the opposite of Dragnet, where we change the names and the stuff to protect the innocent. This is the other way around. We kept the names and we destroyed their history. They play extremely loose with the history. But the stories are really good. They're just not real. Or they're way out of order in timeline. But it's a great show. And Washington's portrayal in it is really good. And the fact that Washington Spies did exist, they actually show it, like I say, the chronology is what's destroyed the most. But there's other stuff that they really just take a lot of liberty. But as far as a fictional show goes, it's incredible. As far as a historical fictional show, use it to learn the names and then learn the stories on your own to get the backstories correct. And that is what you can do for Washington's birthday to celebrate if you want to learn more about him. First of all, know that his birthday is goofy and it's moving all over the place thanks to switching from the Julian calendar, as in Julius Caesar, to the Gregorian calendar, as in Pope Gregory the 13th. And woke Washington, yeah. And the crossing, woohoo! 7.1, tisk, 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 should be much higher. And finally, Washington Spies, 8.1. Again, that's because the show's really entertaining. It's just not that great for history, but I've covered that. Okay, we thank you for sticking around. We hope you enjoyed this. We hope you got something out of it that's helpful. And if you want to share it with other people that love George Washington or just love history, please do. We have a parallel video for this, or a companion video on Abraham Lincoln, and I'll do my best to link it to this so you can see what to watch for Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And we hope that on President's Day, or Washington's birthday, whichever one you prefer, and Lincoln's birthday, that you celebrated our presidents with honor, and you remember that America is only as good as the people in it, and the people in it need to know where we came from, how we came from, and why, which includes American Indians. I'm just saying. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the future.